So, I was just looking through some articles this morning, and this one popped up in my Google alert for trucking from a website called workers.org. The headline is Privatization of Postal Trucking, an Attack on All Freight Workers. Well, anything that involves the Postal Service gets my attention because I've hauled a lot for the Postal Service, and there's not much more on in this world that I hate more than I do hate the Postal Service. Here's a couple of quick clips from the article. Quote, "The privatization of these jobs is another attack on the viability of the Postal Service, destroying the infrastructure that makes mail delivery efficient and timely." Okay, number one, it's laughable for this fool to write the words efficient and timely when discussing the United States Postal Service. He goes on, "The privatization of postal motor vehicles jobs to non-union private contractors should be seen as an attack on the wages and benefits of all transportation workers, including truck drivers, railroad workers, dock workers, and everyone else who handles freight." Okay, here's what's laughable about that. And then it's also noted at the bottom of the article that the writer is a retired letter carrier. Okay. All right, number one, the United States Postal Service is not efficient and timely. That's just a fact. It's a black hole for money. If it wasn't for the junk mail that I haul, and by the way, I am a, non-union private contractor. I am a contractor. I'm non-union. Number one, the Postal Service already does business with a lot of non-union private contractors. They're called truck drivers. That's 95% of the people that are going up and down the road, shifting gears, driving big trucks, are non-union, and a big percentage of them are private contractors. He also notes, communities suffer whenever workers are forced to accept lower pay and inadequate health care and pension benefits. Okay, let's start here. When the Postal Service, or not just the Postal Service, when a business hires an employee, there is a cost. There is a cost for the wage itself. Well, let's say, for example, it's $15 an hour. Then there are taxes, payroll taxes. There are Social Security taxes where you have to match what the worker pays. So you have to match their 7.65%. Then you have the cost of maintaining the tools that they need to do their job, be it a truck, a hammer, a screwdriver, a computer, a copier, a telephone. You have to furnish everything it needs, the employee needs to do the job. You have to pay the employee. Then you have benefits that you use to attract the employee. And so if someone is being paid, say, $15 an hour, the actual cost of that person may be $22 to $25 to $27 an hour, depending on the structure of the business. And obviously the union jobs cost a lot more to the employer because unions have better benefits. Okay, so let's say you use me as an example. I'm a contractor. Okay, I get paid a certain revenue to do a job. I pay for the truck, I pay for the fuel, I pay the taxes, I pay the tolls, I pay my own insurance. All of these costs that, in this case, the carrier would have to pay if I was an employee, they don't have to pay. All they have to pay is the revenue, and then I pay the cost of doing business. I make more money now than I've ever made in my life, even with paying my own health insurance, paying my phone bill, paying for fuel, paying for the truck, paying for the tolls, paying the taxes. I make more money as a contractor than I did as an employee. My last year of driving a truck as an employee, I made about $45,000. Last year, in my first year, getting my feet wet as a contractor, I made over $60,000. So far this year, I'm on track to make $80,000, and more than likely next year, I will probably break six figures. I'll probably make over $100,000 a year doing the same job as a contractor rather than an employee. So let's lay that bit of logic over to this Postal Service issue. The Postal Service has been bleeding money for years, for decades, because there is this demand that, well, we've got to have wages and we've got to have insurance and you've got to give it to us. And because it's the government, there is no market force holding the cost of the labor down, because it's run by the government. And as long as there are politicians to be reelected, they'll keep jacking up the rates and jacking up the rates and jacking up the rates, because they're the only horse in town. There's no competition. You can't get your mail shipped by anybody else. Now, granted, thank God we've got UPS and FedEx out there competing for the bulk shipments, because unless it's a letter and I absolutely have to send it, I'll send it to Postal Service. But if it's not something that has to go through the Postal Service, I go to UPS and FedEx all day, because I get better service, cheaper from the private sector. Okay? So what this guy's written is complete crap. Okay? I can say that from experience, because I've done work as an employee where I had benefits. Okay? My benefits were more expensive when I was an employee for my family of four than it is now that I'm a contractor for my family of four. My premiums when I was an employee were almost $500 a month. My premiums now that I've gone out into the marketplace and bought an individual health policy for my family of four is $281 a month. That's not rocket science. It just simply isn't. So if we were allowed, God forbid, earth-shattering, shaking, destroying, if we would get rid of this employee model at the Postal Service, especially for the truck drivers, when I grew up in rural West Virginia, all of the rural mail carriers were basically that way. They provided their own car and their own gas, and and that I got paid some kind of structure. And I'm sure they had benefits and stuff on top of that. But, when you've got people inside the building shoving carts around and stuff, well, that's fine, to have an employee model there. But even there, the Postal Service is so incompetent and inefficient that it's infuriating. And there's nothing more I hate than pulling those loads, but there are times we just don't have anything better to do, or I'm in an area and I've got to grab one and go, because they're heavy and they're cheap. They cost me more fuel than other loads do, and they don't pay as good as other loads do, but they bridge the gap between good freight and good freight. But we've been brainwashed to believe that privatization is evil. It's somehow bad because you're going to get the short end of the stick. Well, I'm telling you from my experience, I used to be an employee truck driver, okay? And it sucked, because there was a ceiling on how much I could make. I got paid mileage and I got benefits to go with it, but there are only so many miles that one can run in a given period of time. And once you hit that limit, that's it. You're not making any more money. Well, in this case, now I'm a contractor. I have more flexibility. I have more leeway. I have more freedom. I have more, I can make adjustments however I need to see fit. And I make more money. A lot more money. So if we would stop the bleeding at this this godforsaken waste of resources known as the Postal Service and take all those jobs and, yes, privatize them. Now, a lot of people, and he probably leads to that, just starts out the article, and I'll post it in the comments. The billionaires and their politicians and government want to dismantle the world's largest civilian motor vehicle fleet. Why? Because it would generate millions of dollars in profits for private corporations. Okay, that's true to a point, because if the government just contracts it out to a mega carrier, then that mega carrier is going to pay the going rate, which is going to be less than what you're making at the Postal Service. But here's the newsflash. What you're making at the Postal Service is too much. You make too much money. That's the problem. I can't go, as a contractor, I can't go and say, well, I can. I can say, well, this is the minimum I'm going to work for, and I'm not going to work for a dime less. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to be sitting at the house, not making any money, because the market forces have pushed the rates to where they are, and that's what they are, and that's what I have to work for. But being able to manage that in between my profit allows me to make more money. Now, if we would get this down to individual levels, to where if a guy's working for the post office right now driving a truck, and he's able to go out and buy his own truck and contract himself to the Postal Service, he's going to make more money, and the Postal Service is going to spend less. That's not rocket science. That's just truth. Now, obviously, that's probably not going to happen, because anytime the government gets their hands on anything, they screw it up miserably. And so they'll take this, what they want to do, and they'll contract it out to some mega carrier, and these people that were doing the job before will be making $10 an hour. But that's not privatization's fault. That's not the market's fault. That's the government's fault. So let's not confuse those two. The government created this problem, and he mentions also in the article about the $17 trillion national debt, a debt accumulated largely from Pentagon adventures. Hey, there is no doubt that the Pentagon is also a black hole for money. And there needs to be a major, major audit of the Pentagon. And we probably need to cut the Pentagon's budget by at least half, if not 3/4, because it's also a black hole for money. But the overarching theme is the real black hole for money is the government. If you want something done, you want it done efficiently, you want it done correctly, you want it done right, and you want it done in a timely manner, you bring it to the private sector. We'll take care of it.